Now, the biggest ever study of chronic fatigue syndrome, often known as ME, has found it affects more women and they have worse symptoms. 17,000 people with the condition took part in the research. Sonya Chowdhury is chief executive of the charity Action for ME and co-investigator on this study. Thanks for joining us. Sonya, just tell us what you found in this study and how you carried it out.
So we found that being female, older and ill for longer with ME increases the chance of having a greater severity of ME. We were unsurprised to see that more women than men, over 83% of our first 17,000 people, the data that we analysed were women. We were expecting to see that. But we also found that women on average have more symptoms than men as well. And that was quite surprising to us. This is a DNA study, but to be able to participate, all of our participants have to complete a detailed questionnaire. And the paper that we published recently is the analysis of the data from the first 17,000 people that have completed the questionnaire. We've yet to do further analysis on the other questionnaires and also on the DNA.
And what could be the explanation for the imbalance in the gender effects here?
We don't know. There has been so little high quality research in ME. There's been a lack of funding and it hasn't been an area that has had huge amounts of investigation. So we don't know the science that sits behind that. There are lots of hypotheses out there, and clearly people talk about the differences between men and women. And we know that for some women, for example, after pregnancy, their symptoms can improve. For others, they don't. There have been question marks around hormonal differences, but the truth is we just don't know. And that's why studies like Decode ME and big data studies are so important.
And is ME accepted now by the NHS, by clinicians as natural, an accepted diagnosis, an accepted symptom? Because there was a lot of stigma around it, wasn't there?
There has been historically a lot of stigma, and unfortunately there still continues to be some stigma, but that is shifting. There is a clinical guideline that was reviewed a little while ago for doctors to aid diagnosis and supporting people with ME. And a couple of weeks ago, the government launched its cross-government interim national delivery plan for ME. So I think that really highlights how seriously people are taking ME. There are many fantastic healthcare and social care professionals out there, but sadly there is still a small minority that still sort of help continue that stigma. And we do hear, as Action for ME, people that go to their doctor and are dismissed. And I think that's very sad, but we are seeing that improving.
And just remind us what sort of symptoms are included here, and how much of a crossover is there with long COVID?
So there is a wide variety of symptoms. The key defining symptom for an ME diagnosis is something called post-exertional malaise. And that is a worsening or flare-up of symptoms after any form of exertion. It doesn't have to be physical, it could be cognitive. It can be delayed and it can last for hours, days or months. And it's disproportionate to the activity. So for some, there are 1 in 4 people who are so severely affected and are often bedbound. For some, it could even just be turning over. So you can see even just a small activity for some of us can have a major impact. Other symptoms include cognitive difficulties, which may be described as brain fog, sleep difficulties. For some, people have pain, and for many, hypersensitivity to light, sound, or even touch can be a common symptom.
And is it linked to general levels of fitness or to stress or to genetic history?
So what we're aiming to find out in the Decode ME study is what the biological root causes are, and we'll be looking at the the DNA between people and the small differences that exist. There isn't many people with ME cite a viral trigger. So glandular fever is a common one, chest infections, throat infections, herpes, HPV, those kinds of things. People often can say, I got ill with a chest infection and I didn't seem to recover, and then get later diagnosed with ME. There isn't evidence to suggest that stress or other things are a cause, but some people say that can compound their symptoms. But we're most interested in the biological causes of the illness. And what we're seeing with COVID is that there are around 2.1 million people in the UK with long COVID, and for the research is indicating that around half of those have ME-like symptoms. And COVID was the known trigger, and if we hadn't had the phrase long COVID, those individuals may well have been diagnosed with ME, and some of them already are.
But people get over it, don't they? Or they get through it?
No, for many people, they don't get better, and can stay ill for decades, even the rest of their lifetime. For some people, there is improvement, and for others, people can make a full recovery. We just don't have the data to provide good quality statistics, and we don't have the research to help us understand why that might be the case. But as I mentioned, 1 in 4 people are so severely affected, they're house and bed bound for decades, often in a darkened room and needing support with feeding.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for explaining that research. Sonya Chowdhury there, Chief Executive of the charity Action for ME.